Okay, good evening, BS Radtech students. Since hindi man tayo nag-meet ngayon, so we are going to, by the way, I am going to send a video na lang discussing lesson, our lesson for this final. Okay, we have the test of difference of means. So this will be our first lesson for this final quarter. So let me present to you my PowerPoint. So test of difference of means. Actually, this was already discussed by your teacher when you were in first year college. Yeah, about yung lesson about mathematics in the modern world na subject. So I think binalik lang siya for your biostatistics class in the reason of discussing more about the test of difference. Now, test of difference. The t-test is a parametric test of difference between two groups. The means are compared where x1 is group 1 is compared with x2, which is group 2. There are three types of t-test. We have t-test for independent samples, t-test for correlated samples, and one sample t-test. And by the way, I am going to discuss only t-test for independent and correlated. I will not discuss one sample t-test anymore. So ito lang yung dalawa. The independent sample and the correlated sample. Ito lang yung i-discuss ko today. But before anything else, before we will proceed to independent t-test, let's have the difference between independent and dependent t-test. Ano nga ba yung kaibahan ng dalawa? The t-test for independent samples is a test of difference between two independent groups, while t-test for correlated sample is a test of difference between correlated samples or one group of samples. So, ang i-take note nyo lang dito, ang independent sample, there are two groups. Okay? Two independent groups. Sino si two independent groups? Yung, magkaiba silang grupo. Ito yung grupong isa at ito rin yung isang grupo. Meanwhile, for t-test for correlated, and by the way, another term for t-test for correlated is dependent or paired sample t-test. Again ha, maraming pangalan ang dependent t-test. The correlated sample, dependent at saka paired sample, they're just the same. Okay, dependent, parehas na sila, dependent t-test. But anyways, let's proceed. Ang dependent t-test, isang grupo lang yung involved. Okay? Isang grupo lang yung involved dito. Another, for example, if we are interested in studying the effect of medical treatment on insulin rate, here are two possible experimental designs that would help answer this question. For paired sample t-test, insulin rate is measured on 30 patients before and after. Take note of the clue, before and after the medical treatment. Data are thus organized by the pairs. Every patient is associated with two measurements. And the appropriate test to use here is paired two sample t-test. Okay, there is only one group. It is only 30 patients involved. Meanwhile, in the next example, this is an example of independent two sample t-test. Why? If you're going to read the example, insulin rate is measured on 30 patients receiving a placebo. Okay, receiving a placebo, basta placebo, and 30 other patients receiving the medical treatment. In this case, all of the measurements are independent. So this is an example of independent t-test. Why? The other group is those 30 patients receiving a placebo treatment. The another 30 patients are receiving medical treatment. So there are two groups involved. Compared to our previous example, there is only one group. Okay? One group of sample. Ang ginawa lang sa first example is yung pag-conduct niya ng medical treatment before, then pag-conduct ng medical treatment after. So same patient pa rin. Same patient before, same patient after. Unlike sa independent, ibang grupo ang may placebo treatment, ibang grupo yung receiving medical treatment. That's their difference. Another example is this. An instructor wants to compare student scores on the midterm and final exam. This is most often done by obtaining a sample of students and recording each student's midterm exam score and final score. In other words, there would be two measurements for each student. This is an example of paired t-test. Why? Kasi the same students naman yung respondents niya or sample niya. The same students with yung midterm exam, then pagdating ng final exam, the same student lang din yung kukunin yung final exam na result. Okay, the same student lang. Meanwhile, dito sa next example, this is an example of independent groups. A shoe company is studying how many shoes Italian men and women own. In one research study, they take a random sample of 500 Italian adults and ask each individual if they identify as man or women and how many pairs of shoes they own. So the men and women in this study are two independent groups. So gina-ask nila ang grupo ng men and grupo ng women. So in that case, this example is independent t-test. Common example of paired t-test or dependent t-test, again common example of paired t-test and dependent t-test is the post-test and pre-test. Post-test and pre-test event. Yan. That's the common example. So this time, let's proceed to independent t-test. Okay, let's proceed to independent t-test. What is independent t-test? So the t-test for independent samples is a test of difference between two independent groups. That is two different groups. Magkaibang grupo dapat. For instance, comparing the mean height of the male and females, di ba? The other group is male, the other group is female. Or comparing the mean score of medical and non-medical students. So the other group is medical students, meanwhile the other group naman is non-medical students. So this involves independent t-test. Okay, this is independent t-test. Independent t-test also, it measures hypothesis test, allows researchers to evaluate the mean difference between two populations using data from two separate samples. The identifying characteristics of the independent measures or between subjects design is the existence of two separated independent samples. And also, thus, independent measure design can be used to test for mean differences between two distinct populations, such as men versus women, or between two different treatment conditions, such as drug versus no drug. This is the formula of independent t-test. Again, this is the formula of independent t-test. We have this one, x. X sub 1, this is the mean of group 1. X sub 2, the mean of group 2. S sub 1, the standard deviation of group 1. S sub 2 is the standard deviation of group 2. Then N sub 1 is the number of observations or the number of samples in group 1. And N sub 2 is the number of samples in group 2. So this is the formula of independent t-test. Okay. Now, I am going to discuss the assumptions of independent t-test using SPSS. Again, I am going to discuss the assumptions of independent t-test using SPSS. In assumption number 1, your dependent variable should be measured on continuous scale. Okay, it is either measured interval or ratio level. Example of variables that meet this criterion include revision time, that is measured in hours, intelligence such as IQ score, exam performance, okay, from 0 to 100, and weight in kilograms, and so on and so forth. There are many examples. In SPSS assumption for independent t-test, you need to make it sure that the dependent variable should be measured on continuous scale, either interval, or ratio. Another assumption is that your independent variable should consist of two categorical independent groups. Okay, your independent variable should consist of two categorical independent groups. Example, two groups like male or female, employment status such as employed or unemployed, smoker just like yung nag-yes or no, and so on and so forth, and many more. Okay. Again, your independent variable should consist two categorical. When we say categorical variable, it should be nominal level. Okay, it should be in nominal level. Assumption number 3, you should have independence of observation, which means that there is no relationship between the observation in each group or between the group themselves. For example, there must be different participants in each group with no participation being in more than one group. This is more of a study design issue than something you can test for, but it is an important assumption of independent t-test. If your study fails this assumption, you will need to use another statistical test instead of independent t-test, such as paired sample t-test. Again dapat both groups are independent with each other. Okay? Both groups are independent with each other. Hindi makaka-apekto yung isa sa isang grupo. Next assumption we have, there should be no significant outliers. Ano ibig sabihin ng outliers? Outliers are simply single data points within your data that do not follow the usual pattern. Example, in a study of 100 students where the mean score was 108 with only a small variation between students. One student had a score of 156, which is very unusual and may even put her in the top 1% of IQ scores globally. As you can see in this example, there are 100 students and the mean score of the IQ is 108. But there is this one student who has an IQ of 156. So, masyadong malayo talaga. Okay? Masyadong malayo. So, 156 is considered as outlier. The problem with outlier is that they can have a negative effect on the independent t-test, reducing the validity of your results. Okay? That's for the assumption number 4. Next assumption, your dependent variable should be approximately normally distributed for each group of the independent variable. Or should I say, the data should be normal. Okay? Again, the data should be normally distributed. We talk about the independent t-test only, okay? And it only requiring approximate normal data because it is quite robust to violations of normality, meaning that this assumption can be little violated and still provide valid results. You can test for normality using the Shapiro-Wilk test of normality, which is easily tested using SPSS statistics. That is for assumption number 5. Assumption number 6, there's no need to be homogeneity of variances. You can test this assumption in SPSS statistics using Levin's test for homogeneity of variances. Now, take note of this one. Assumptions 1, 2, and 3, okay? These assumptions can be tested, okay? Can be tested without the use of SPSS. Again, assumptions 1, 2, and 3, these assumptions can be tested without the use of SPSS. Meanwhile, assumption 4, 5, and 6, this assumption, it requires SPSS to determine this one. Again, this assumption is required. Again, these assumptions 4 to 5 to 6, yeah, they are unlike 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 do not require SPSS to check the assumption, but assumptions 4, 5, and 6, SPSS is required to test the assumptions. Now let's proceed to the stepwise method. Yeah, independent t-test using stepwise method. Okay, so we need to follow these steps. Okay, we need to follow these steps, and these steps can be we will compute this one later. So I will show my solution later. Yung manual solving tayo step by step. And for our first example is this, okay? This is our first example. So the following are the scores of mali ni siya. The following are scores in biostatistics class dapat ni. Okay, wait lang ha. Okay. The following are the scores in biostatistics test of 10 male and 10 female. BS Radtech students use t-test to determine if there is no significant difference between performance of male and female BS Radtech students in biostatistics test. Use 5% level of significance. So there are two groups involved, the group of male and the group of female. So we are going to test if there is a significant difference between the performance of male and female BS Radtech students. So I will give you time to copy this one, and later we will transfer to Microsoft Word for our solution. Okay, so let's transfer to my Microsoft Word because I am going to show my solution in this example to Microsoft Word. Then, and I am going to share also the Microsoft file to our page for you to have a guide. Okay. Okay, wait lang ha. So we have here our example, our first example. Nakuha po ani ni. Then here is our data. And this is our data. Wait lang, gamay ra kay dako ra kay siya. Yan. Okay? The following scores are the scores in biostatistics test of 10 male and 10 female BS Radtech students. So use t-test, specifically independent t-test, because there are two groups involved, male and female. So we are going to determine whether if there is no significant difference between the performance of male and female BS Radtech students. Okay. Now, let's have the step 1. Ay, copy din ako tong step 1 din, no? Step 1. So, step 1. Okay? Step 1, formulate hypothesis. Okay? Step 1, formulate hypothesis. So, we are going to create a hypothesis based on the given problem. And plus, there are two hypotheses we have, the null hypothesis at saka the alternative hypothesis. Again, there are two hypotheses. We have the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis. So if I am going to create a null hypothesis for the one, null hypothesis, the symbol is HO. Again, the symbol for null hypothesis is HO. Okay. So if I am going to create a null hypothesis, you should always go back to the problem. So the null hypothesis for this one, we have there is no, copy lang yun, there is no significant difference. Yan. Okay? This is the null hypothesis. The null hypothesis is ito. Meanwhile, the alternative hypothesis is the opposite of null hypothesis. The alternative hypothesis is the alternate of null hypothesis, which is H, which is there is. Okay? There is dapat. Yan. Next, we're done with the null hypothesis. Again, we're done with hypothesis. Now, after that one is we are going to identify the level of significance. Saan banda makikita ang level of significance? Andito. Dara. Use 5%. Okay? Use 5% level of significance. So that means our alpha level of significance, it's A is equal to 0.05. 5% is equal to 0.05, and that is our level of significance. Next, compute the calculated value using formula. Okay? Compute. So based on our data here, this is our data, this is our data. Now, I will allow you to use Excel. Mas dali siya i-solve pag Excel, no? Again ha, mas dali siya i-solve pag Excel. So our data, we are going to transfer this one to Excel. Again, i-transfer na ako niya akong data sa Excel. Okay. We are going to transfer this data on Excel. So let me share to you the Excel file of this one. So this is the data. Wait lang ha. Ano man eh. Okay, this is the male data. Is X sub 1. And the female data. Ano naka-wrap text? Wait lang ha. Wait lang, pangit kayo. Okay, this is our data ha. This is our data, male and female. The female is group 2, X sub 2. Okay. So you are going to find the mean of this one, okay? The mean. The mean of the male, the mean of, okay, again, we are going to find the mean, then the standard deviation, and also the n. Okay. For the mean, this is for male and female. Yan, male. Ang gawin nyo lang sa mean is equals, tapos average. Okay, average, mean tapos average, tapos i-drag lang na siya, i-click ni, i-drag lang na siya. Then close parenthesis, that's the mean. Then for female, equals average also. Then this one, yan. Then for the standard deviation, para mas dali mo makakuha standard deviation, equals, tapos STD, kani kaduha ang ibutang. Again, kaning kaduha ang ibutang. Yan. Then i-click na po ni for male. Yan. And for female naman, same na po STDEV, Kaning S. Kanang na S ha, sample man, sample. Kaning na S. Then, i-drag ang female. Yan. 2 decimal places lang tayo for, ano, 2 decimal places lang tayo for, for standard deviation. For N. Class, paano kunin itong N? Itong N class, itong N, ihapon lang niyo mo ni siya. Ihapon, pinakabuok. Di ba ang nakabutang sa problem 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 kabuok male, 10 po kabuok female. And that's the N. Okay, again ha, I will allow you to use Excel kasi para mas madali kayo. Again, I will allow you to use Excel para mas madali kayo. So i-copy lang natin siya dito. Change ito ang font, change ito ang font. Yan. Copy this one to our Word. And we have this. Okay? Then also the formula. We are going to use the formula. Okay? Ano yung formula? Okay? We are going to find the computed value. So this is the formula. And this is the formula. Kaning x sub 1, mo na ang mean sa x1. Kani. Mo na ang mean. I am going to put na lang here. This is the mean. Okay, this is the mean. The standard deviation is the S. Okay, the standard deviation is the S. Yan. Then the N. Okay. So after this one, we are going to substitute the corresponding value. I-substitute lang natin, class. I-substitute lang natin. Copy-paste lang natin ito din. I-substitute lang natin. Yan. Ang x sub 1. Saan banda yung x sub 1? The x sub 1 is the mean of group 1. Saan banda dito yung mean ng group 1? The mean of the group 1 is here. It's 13.1. So 13.1. Change lang natin, 13.1. The mean of x sub 2, it's 7.8. The mean of group 2 is 7.8. Okay. The standard deviation. The standard deviation of group 1, S1 ha, S1 siya, S1. The squared nakabutang, squared nakabutang. The standard deviation is 4.41. Kailangan mo siya lagyan ng squared, kinaamay squared. Then the n sub 1, the n of group 1 is 10. Then the standard deviation of group 2, the standard deviation is 3.79. Then naka-squared na ha, naka-squared. Yan. So that's 3.79 squared. Then the value of n sub 2, that's the n of group 2, which is 10. Then the n of group 1 is 10. The n of group 2 is 10 also. Yan. Then 10, n of group 1, 10, n of group 2 is 10. Okay, then you are going to solve this one. Okay. Solve, we have P equals 13.1 minus 7.8. That's wait lang ha. Okay? So that's x sub 1 13 minus 1. 13.1 minus 7.8. It's 5.3. Next. Ang baba naman, this one, medyo marami ito. Medyo marami ito ha. This is 175. 175.039 minus F plus F plus 129.2769 over 10 plus 10 minus 2, that's 18 times 1 over 10, we have 1/5. Okay? Then you have this answer. Yan. Okay, wait lang ha. I-multiply na lang na diretso. I-multiply na lang diretso. 175 minus 0. To 769. So this is 3.38. Okay, this is the denominator is 3.3129. Yan. And then so t equals to 5.3 divided by square root of 3.38129. 3 significant, ano lang, 3 decimal places tayo, 3 decimal places. The answer is 2.882. Okay? The absolute value of this one, again, the absolute value of this one, again, the absolute value of this one, lagyan ko na lang ng ano. The absolute value is just the same pa din, which is the answer is T equals 2.882. This is the okay. This is the computed value. Okay. This is your computed value. Na lang. Let me write na lang this one. Ayan. The computed value is 2.882. Okay, the computed value is 2.882. Now, the step 4 is the comparison of the tabulated and computed value. Before that, we need to get the degree of freedom first. Okay? Get the degree of freedom first. The F we have degree of freedom is equal to n sub 1 plus n sub 2 minus 2. Okay? Get the degree of freedom first. The F is equal to 10 plus 10 minus 2 The DF is 18. Okay? This DF will lead us into ano? Find the tabulated value. Again, this DF will help us find the computed value. Sige, now let's find, wait lang ha, asan na ito kung table? Wait lang ha, table. Let me find a table first. Okay, wait lang ha. Okay, I am going to copy this this picture, no? Okay, dire mo tanaw. Okay? Find the computed value. Okay, DF. We have the degrees of freedom is 18. Then our alpha level of significance, again, let me write this one. DF is 18. And alpha level of significance is 0.05. And N is equal to, wait lang. Okay. DF is 18 and the alpha level of significance is 0.05. Now, saan banda dito ang DF is 18 then 0.05? Asa na pet? Dara. So let me highlight this one. Let me highlight this one. 18. Dara oh. Let me highlight ha. Ito. 18. Then yan. 0.05. Okay? That means our critical value or tabular value, again ha, that means our critical or tabular value to this is ito, that 2.101. Okay, let me highlight this one for you to ano. Yan. Okay? Ito naka-highlight dito. This is your tabulated value. Okay? Dito kayo magbe-base. Again na, paano ko siya kinuha? Paano ko siya kinuha? Again, we are going to get the degree of freedom. And this is the formula of degree of freedom kung independent t-test. And then our degree of freedom is 18. And then the alpha level of significance is 0.05. Asa naging siya gikan? Nasa step 2. The step 2 dara. Okay? Now look at the table, this one. The value of our tabulated is 2.101. Okay, so let's write here. Wait lang ha. Again, I will send this I will send this image naman din. Don't you worry. Nawala lang send backward. Yan. Walang highlights. Sige. Okay, so we can conclude. Okay, we can conclude class. Let's write ha. Let's write. Okay, the tabulated value is pila to na sa table, it's 2.101. The computed value nung gisolve natin, the computed value, wait lang, wrong grammar. Computed value, ilan yung computed value natin? It's 2.882. Okay? It's 2.882. Okay, now, this time, we are going to, after this one, after getting the computed value, let's proceed to the decision. Okay? let's proceed to the decision. What are we going to do? Okay? Yan na. We are going, anong gagawin natin? Let's have this decision. I-highlight sana ako ang steps. Yan. Oh my God, lobat na ko class. Wait lang ha. Ijud kayo ko. Okay. Ano na? Sige. Let's have the decision. So I am going to write this ano muna. You need to take note this one. Take note of this one ha. If the calculated value is less than the tabulated value, then fail to reject HO. If greater than naman, again ha, if greater than siya class, if greater than siya, then reject HO. Now, okay, now based on the data, based on our tabulated and computed values, again, I try to check our computed and tabulated values here. And so let's write, mauna ang calculated. Calculated or computed, sorry, calculated pala. Calculated or computed, they're just the same ha. Calculated pala. Computed or calculated ha, they're just the same ha. Let me write na lang. Calculated. Calculated or computed, parehas lang yan sila. Yan. So if we are going to compare, our calculated is 2.82. Again, our calculated value is 2.882. Then, our tabulated value is 2.101. Again ha, our computed value is 2.82. And then, our, okay ha, let me write na lang this one. Tabulated. Ay, calculated. Calculated. Tabulated. This one. Yan. Okay, try, we are going to compare. Okay, what will be the appropriate symbol for this? Okay, what will be the appropriate symbol for this? Anong mas malaki? Mas malaki ang calculated value. That means the appropriate symbol is greater than. Again, since malaki man yung calculated value, the appropriate symbol for this is greater than. Okay? So since greater than man siya, greater than ha, greater than, that means reject HO. Again, reject HO. Now, pag mag-reject mo HO class, if you are going to reject the HO, Okay? Reject the null hypothesis or reject the HO. That means this is significant. Okay? This is significant. Again, ha? Mag-reject kayo ng HO, there is a significant. This is significant. If mag-fail to reject mo, there is no significant or not significant. Again, ha? If mag-reject ng HO, significant. Pag mag-fail to reject HO, not significant. Okay, now, since the decision is to reject the HO and this is significant, that means the conclusion is a significant difference between, ito, kapiyon na lang ako ang alternative. Kapiyon na lang ako ang alternative. Yan. Okay? There is a significant difference between the performance of male and female BS Radtech students in biostatistics test. Yan. Okay? Ito yung conclusion. We can also write the implication. Okay? Again ha, ask, what is the implication? Ito yung implication niya. Since na may significant difference, ibig sabihin ng significant difference na kalahian. Na kalahian sa performance sa male o female. So, the implication goes like this. Since naman siya difference, okay? Wait lang ha. Na siya difference, dara. So, tanaw na to ang mean sa male o female. Kasi mas dako. Okay? Since na may difference sa difference, tanaw na to ang mean sa male o female. Kasi mas dako. Mas dako ang mean sa male. Again, mas dako ang mean sa male. Okay, so what is the implication of this one? Okay, wait lang ha. Ako sample din ng implication. Wait lang, asa na tong ano? Nako sample din ng implication. Pwede na ito kapihon. Ayun na lang. Sige, let's have the implication. Again, the implication, mas malaki ang mean ng male kaysa kay female. So, since wait lang ha. Ano pag-construct niya? Naglibog ko saan pag-construct. Wait lang. Naglibog ko saan pag-construct. Okay. Asa naman to eh? Okay, siguro you can have this one. We can have this implication. Male, wait lang. Male BS Radtech. Ito yung implication niya, male BS Radtech students have a higher mean compared to female BS Radtech students. Radtech students. Then, last na lang, wait lang. Therefore, male BS Radtech, based on the result, therefore, male BS Radtech students perform better than female BS Radtech students in their biostatistics class. Ito yung implication niya. Male BS-Radtech students have a higher mean compared to female BS-Radtech students. Therefore, male BS-Radtech students perform better than female BS-Radtech students in their biostatistics class. And that is the implication and conclusion of the result. Again ha, balik ko na ito ang process. Ito yung data, then we write the hypothesis, then we identify the level of significance, then we solve. Okay? Paano gani ito i-solve natin, itong mean, SD at saka yung N? Okay? Itong mean at saka SD, I will allow you to use Excel. I will allow you to use Excel for you to solve this one in para mas dali. Then this is the formula. This is the computed value or the calculated value, computed or calculated. Then we are going to compare the computed at saka the tabulated. But before that, we are going to get the degrees of freedom first. DF stands for degrees of freedom. Again, DF stands for degrees of freedom. So we are going to get the degrees of freedom first. Then after that one, we are going to use this table. This table will tell us the tabulated value. The degrees of freedom is 18. The alpha level of significance is 0.05. So punta tayo dito and we have found out this one. The tabulated value is 2.101 here. Tabulated 2.101, calculated 2.882. Then for the step 5, the decision. What are we going to do? If greater than yung calculated value compared to tabulated, that means reject HO. And when we say reject HO, that means this is significant. Okay? Significant siya. But kung fail to reject siya, that means not significant. And we have the conclusion here. There is a significant difference between the performance of male and female BS-Radtech students in their biostatistics test. Now, the implication here, we have male BS-Radtech students have a higher mean compared to female BS-Radtech students. Therefore, male BS-Radtech students perform better than female BS-Radtech students in their biostatistics test. Kumbaga pa, mas bright daw ang ilang mga lalaki. Okay? Mas bright ang mga lalaki na biostatistics sa ilang biostat nga klase. Okay? And that is the process. Okay, that is the process. Now, this time, since we're done naman dito, so this time, let's proceed to our PowerPoint again. Okay, I want you to answer this one. Okay, I want you to answer this example number 2. Kayo ang mag-solve nito, then I am going to show my solution for example number 2. Again I am going to show my solution sa example number 2. Now, before tayo mag-end, let me give you this another example based on SPSS output. Again, we are going to use this one based on SPSS output. This one, independent t-test p-value approach using SPSS. Na ito yung i-take note ninyo. Again, ito yung i-take note ninyo class for SPSS. SPSS ha, again for SPSS value ito. If the p-value is greater than the alpha level of significance, then fail to reject HO. The difference is not significant. If the p-value is less than A, then reject HO, the difference is significant. Sir, unsa ng p-value? Asa mi mag-base sa p-value? Mag-base mo sa p-value dire. Okay? Dire mag-base sa p-value. Especially this one. Sige lang, dili ta mo i-complicate, no? I will not complicate you kasi there is explanation between this A and B, no? May explanation itong A and B. Okay, dire na lang mo tanaw. Okay, dire na lang mo tanaw ha, this one. Especially this one. Okay? Dito kayo titingin. Okay? Now, this is your p-value. Okay? Ito yung p-value nyo. Then, usually, the alpha level of significance is 0.05. Okay? The alpha level of significance is 0.05. Now, if I am going to determine this one, if it is significant or not, the answer is this is significant. The p-value here is 0.0. Okay? The p-value is 0, 0. Okay, yan, 0, 0. Then, anong sabi dito sa second condition? If the p-value is less than A, then reject HO, then the difference is significant. Okay? Yan. I want, let me show to you the SPSS output of this one. Okay? Let me share to you the SPSS output of this one. Again ha, let me share to you the SPSS output of this one. Sige, let me have i-copy yung sa nako ha. Okay, let's have the SPSS output of this one. Wait lang ha. Montos ako SPSS. Okay, medyo ano kasi siya. Mag-ano sa ako, anong tawag dito? Wait lang ha. SPSS. Wait lang talaga, Chud. Wait lang ha. Hulat lang yun mo. Scores. Okay, hapit ako mahuman og analyze. Okay, here is the result. Okay? Ipakita ko sa inyo ang result is SPSS approach. Okay, naapod ni siya, ibutang na ako ha. Ibutang po na ako ni siya sa table. Okay, ay sa Word rather, sa Word. Ibutang po na ako ni siya sa Word. Okay, wait lang. And there is. Okay. Nakapin na ako. Ay, ni pangit man class. Wait lang ha, ni pangit ang ano. Sa itong word dala. Okay, dala na siya. Ni pangit man ni siya. Ito fit. Sige. I-transfer ko siya sa another ano ha. Okay. This is our problem. Independent t-test. Okay. Approach. Wait. Kapiyon sa nako ang hypothesis. Kapiyon sa nako ang hypothesis ani. Okay, kapiyon sa nako ang hypothesis. Yan. Dara, mo ni ang SPSS result. Okay? Mo ni ang SPSS result niya class. Katong gibuhat ato ganina katong data, same data jud mismo ni. Same data mismo. Di ba ni anak ko kanina sa inyo ha? Diri mo tan-aw di ba sa sig two-tailed. Okay? Again, ibutang nato dire the alpha level of significance is 0.05. That's the alpha level of significance. Then the p-value. Saan gani mag-base ang p-value? Ang p-value ninyo is diri mo sa sig-tailed mag-base kana. Same lang sila, so wala problema. Diri mo tan-aw equal variances assumed. Diri mo tan-aw class, diri ang sig two-tailed. So you have the value is 0.010. Then ano gayong condition? Okay? If the diba may nakalagay kanina sa condition nakalagay na condition, di ba? Ito, let me write it again to you. I-post na ako there is a word. Condition. Ayan. Okay, now, what can you say about this one? What can you say? The p-value 0.010 what? Less than 0.05. Again, ha? This is the decision. Let me write the decision. Yan. The decision now, we have 0.010. Our p-value is less than 0.05. That means reject HO and the difference is significant. Okay? Yan. So, the conclusion, kaya lang itong conclusion sa PCAS gay na, parehas naman sila. The conclusion, yan. The conclusion. Wait lang ha. Okay, ito. There is a significant difference between diba, the same result lang sila using SPSS approach and using the yung kanina manual. Traditional approach yun siya. Again, yung kanina traditional approach yun siya. Ito using SPSS approach. Yan. Okay, so i-save na ko ni siya. Save na ko ni ha. Example 1. Okay, save na ko ni siya. Then, share na ko ni siya sa page ninyo. Okay, i-share na ko ni siya sa page ninyo. So, that's all for our discussion this evening. So, I am going to post another video discussing about paired sample t-test. Again, independent pa lang ito. Later, I will post another video discussing dependent t-test. Again, I will post another video discussing dependent t-test. So, don't you worry with this file. I am going to share this one with you sa page. And again, for your assignment, I want you to answer this one. Sana yon. Ito. I want you to answer this one, please. Kanilang, pag-practice mo. Okay, pag-practice mo, I want you to answer this one. Okay? Please cook answer, Annie. So that's all for our discussion this evening. Mag-post lang ko og another video discussing the dependent t-test. Iba kasi yung process ng dependent at independent, no? But medyo similar lang sila. Ang formula lang yung magkaiba. Okay? Formula lang yung magkaiba pero yung process, yung step 1, step 2 kanina, so same lang sila ha, same lang sila. Okay? So that's all. Thank you for listening.